Howdy, howdy. This is Mr. Elmhorst with the help video for the homework with solving multi-step equations and including special cases. So just reviewing our strategies for simplifying and solving one variable equations. First, we're going to look for the distributive factors that need to be multiplied through the groups with parentheses. Then we're going to combine any like terms on the same side of the equal sign. Use inverse operations on opposite sides of the equal sign to get the variable only to one side. And then finally, solve for the variable using inverse operations to isolate on one side of the equation. So taking a look at the first one, we are going to distribute the 5 times the x and 5 times the 3. So 5 times x is going to be 5x, and then minus is going to stay in the middle, and then 5 times 3 is 15, and then we just rewrite the rest of the equation going across now that we are done with the first step. So flowing down, I'm going to combine like terms on this side. We have 5x and 2x, which is going to give us 7x minus 15, and that is equal to 41. So now we have the variable isolated on one side. We're going to get rid of the 15 by adding 15 to both sides. So that's going to cancel on the left side, and now we're left with 7x, and that will be equal to 41 plus 15 is going to be 56. So the last step for this equation, we're going to divide both sides by 7. 7 divided by 7 is going to be 1, and now x equals 56 divided by 7 is going to be 8. Okay, moving on to the next one here. So we have two sets of parentheses. We have 3 times a minus 2 and 2 times 3a minus 2. So taking a look on the left side, the special case we need to pay attention to here is the subtraction of everything that is inside the parentheses. So one way to deal with that is to add the opposite of the parentheses in the factor. So we're actually going to be multiplying by a negative 3 times a and a negative 3 times 2. So let's go ahead and do that. So now we have 4a on the left side, 4a plus negative 3 times a is going to be negative 3a, and we can leave that in parentheses. And then we're subtracting negative 3 times 2, which is going to give us a negative 6. We move over to the other side. 2 times 3 is going to give us 6a, and then 2 times 2 is going to give us 4. So following our process down here from left side, right side. So it looks like we have 4a and negative 3a. Well, those are going to cancel, and we're going to be left with a minus a negative 6, and subtracting 6 would be the same. Subtracting 6 negatives is the same as adding 6 positives following our integer rules. So now we got 6a minus 4. So now that we have that, we are going to subtract a from both sides. So positive a, negative a is going to cancel. And so then we have 6 is equal to 5a minus 4. So this one, 6a minus 1a, is going to give us 5a. So now that we have the variable on one side by itself, we're going to add 4 to both sides to cancel that. So negative 4, positive 4 is gone. So now we're left with 10 is equal to 5a. And now we're going to divide both sides by 5. and we're going to arrive at our solution of 2 is equal to a, or a is equal to 2. We're done with the top two, so let's go down to number 3. So here we have we have 7t minus 2, and then we have negative 3t plus 1. So there is no factor over here, so on the outside, so we can do 7t minus 2. But now we have this negative sign right here. So everything that's going to follow after it, we're going to do the opposite. Instead of subtracting, we're going to add the inverse of what is inside the parentheses. So we're adding 3t plus a negative 1. So on the right side, we do need to distribute, but we have a negative on the outside, so we're going to distribute that negative through the parentheses. So negative 3 times 1 is going to be negative 3 minus negative 3 times 3 is going to be negative 9t. So on the right side, we can do the inverse. When subtracting a negative, we're going to add the opposite. So now we are ready to put our variables together. So this is going to be 10t, and then this is subtracting 2 is the same as 2 negatives. And now we can put our numbers together on this side. So we have a total of 3 negatives, and that is equal to negative 3 plus 9t. So there's more variables, 10 times t on this side. So let's subtract 9 from both sides. Subtract 9t. So that's going to cancel over here. And we're going to be left with t minus 3, which is equal to negative 3. And now we're going to add 3 to both sides. And we're going to be left with t is equal to 0. So I'm not 100% confident that 0 is going to be the answer, but let's go up here and check and see if it's true. So everywhere t is, you can put in 0, 0, 0, and let's see if it's going to be true. So we got negative 2 minus 1 is equal to negative 3. So you distribute this here, and adding the opposite, so that does check out. So this solution does check out. That is a true answer to balance the equation. So number 4, we are subtracting 2 times this whole parentheses here. So because we're subtracting, we need to make sure that we distribute that through the parentheses. So we're multiplying by negative 2 to both things inside the parentheses. So now we have 14, and 2 times negative 2 times 3p is going to give us negative 6p plus negative 2 times 1 is going to be a negative 2. Okay, there we go. So now 6 times 4 is going to be 24 plus 6 times p, which is going to give us 6p. So now that we distributed, we're going to do, no, that does not have a letter with it. So there's nothing we can do there. So let's add 6p to both sides. So negative 6p, positive 6p is going to cancel. And then we can probably combine these also. 14 minus 2 is going to be 12. And now we have 24 plus 12p altogether. And to subtract 24, now that we have just one variable by itself, and we're going to do that to both sides, that's going to give us a negative 12. This is going to cancel. 24 minus 24 is gone, so now we have 12p left equal to negative 12. And we're going to go on the side with the variable, divide by 12, and divide by 12. So now 12 divided by 12 is 1, and we are left with p, and this is going to give us 1, and 1 negative is going to leave it negative in our answer. Number 5 has a fraction to distribute through the parentheses. So we're going to multiply 2 sevens times everything inside this parentheses. So we got 2 times 14 is going to give us 28 over 7. And that has the Q on it. Q. And then 2 times 7 is going to be 14. And then 2 times 7 is 14. So those inverses are going to cancel, and you're going to be left with 1. Then we have minus 3q equal to 9. So this is going to simplify to 4q plus 1 minus 3q equals 9. And we're left with variables, like terms on the same side, 4q minus 3q, which is going to leave us with 1q, and that is equal to 9. And then we follow our last step here, minus 1, minus 1. So we're left with q, positive, negative are going to cancel. Q equals 8. All right, and for number 6, in order to distribute this subtraction or the negative, we're going to change this to a positive, make this one negative, and make this one negative. So we distribute that negative or the subtraction of everything inside the group. So now we have x plus negative 4x minus a negative 7. So subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive from our integer rules. Now we move over to the other side, 5x, and we're going to do the same thing over here. So this subtraction is going to go through the parentheses. So we make that negative and we make that negative. So instead of subtracting everything in the parentheses, we're going to add the opposite. So here we have negative x and we have negative 21. So now let's go back on the left side. We have x and negative 4x. We combine those two and we're left with negative 3x plus 7. And here we have negative x and positive x. 5 minus 1 is going to leave us with 4x plus a negative 21. We can also rewrite that as adding a negative is the same as subtracting 21. Okay, so now we have variables on both sides. We're going to have to take care of that first before we start to solve. I'm going to add 3x to both sides. So left side, that's going to cancel. So we're left with 7 is equal to 7x minus 21. Now the variable is all by itself on one side. So the variable is consolidated to one side. So now let's isolate it, adding 21 to both sides. And that is going to give us 7x equals 28. All right, I guess that was a little too soon. We're still not down to the answer. Now we're down to the last step. I'm going to divide both sides by 7. Now we're done. 7 divided by 7 is going to be 1x, and 28 divided by 7 is going to give us 4. So 4 equals x, or x equals 4. All right, so for the last one, we have two expressions, and we need to set them equal to each other so they're going to be the same distance. So let's distribute 4 times d and 4 times 2. So we got 4 times d, which is going to give us 4d, plus 4 times 2, which is 8, and then we continue to write it across, fill out what we didn't have to do anything with. Now we go to the right side. So 3 times 2 is going to give us 6, plus, and we go to the other side, 3 times d, which is going to give us 3d. So here we have two variables. We have 4d and negative 2d on the left side. So let's combine those like terms. So that is going to give us 2d plus 8, and that is equal to 6 plus 3d. Now we need to combine the variable d and get them only onto one side. It's going to subtract 2d, subtract 2d. So now that is canceled. We're going to bring the 8 down. And here we have 6 plus d. So 3 minus 2 is going to give us 1. And now we subtract 6 from both sides. And I believe we are to our final step here. 8 minus 6 is 2. 6 and negative 6 is going to cancel. And we're left to when the distance is at 2. So go back to the question. So on what number of days will their distance be the same? It will be after 2 days. They will end up being at the same distance.